students, welcome back to third year, and I hope you all are doing well. Uh, I would want कि आप लोग जो है वो चैट में ज़रूर रिस्पॉन्ड कर दें ना ओवैस है कौन शारिक प्लीज़ ज़रा सा चैट खुली रखना ठीक है I know it has been a hard time for all of us with this COVID setting in, and like अभी कॉलेज खुल रहा है अभी नहीं खुल रहा है अभी ये हो रहा है अभी नहीं हो रहा है so many things. So I know you've all it's not that third year or second year or first year, everybody has been in it together. And I'm sure there has been a lot of lacking here and there. But then us being humans, we belong to these species with we have the survival of the fittest key, best example. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll get through, and I welcome you all, and I hope inshallah this year is going to be a lot better than what it has been till now, and hopefully we will overcome the losses that we've had academically or morally or socially or overall we've been very depressed and all, but then inshallah we'll overcome. Okay, so today my topic is infectious disease epidemiology and its introductory concepts. We've been doing epidemiology since in first year and second year. I mean, if it would have been a normal classroom, I would have loved to ask you all that what is epidemiology, but I suppose it's not going to be very effective here and is going to take a lot of time. So here it is going to be that I would write you to revise, but then first we will talk about what we will be doing in this lecture. And that would be, we'll be doing the epidemiological models and definition of communicable disease and importance of studying communicable diseases, epidemiology, then some terminologies of infectious disease, and then dynamics of disease transmission, that how a chain of infection takes place. And this is one of the very important lectures in context of COVID-19 also, as we're all talking about infection only these days, and the transmission and the chain of infections. So basically, epidemiology is the study of distribution and determinants of disease and health-related events and its application to control and prevent. Okay. So basically, if we want to summarize it, it would be that we have 5 W's. That is who, what, where, when, why, and how. So if we want to explain it further, so when we're talking about what, so the health conditions, whether it is the disease or the wellness or the injury or the disability. Whereas who is affected, right? Or who is causing that effect. And if you're talking about a human being, or if you're talking about a person, so his age would matter, a gender would matter, his race and ethnicity, religion, diet, behaviors, these are the things would matter, right? So we would talk about who in a disease, okay? So what in a disease, whether it is existent or not, whether there is an ability, a disability, whatever, then who is being affected by it, then where, I mean, whether it is the urban area or the rural area. And then we have to talk about the annual cycles, the long-term trends, the time of the day, the season, and different, so when we're talking about, for example, malaria. So when there's monsoon season, we will say that, there's a regular pattern of malaria. Yeah. So same as then we will talk about why is it happening. We'll sort of generate the hypothesis, the causative organisms, the the overall analytical epidemic. So all these things combined together for the epidemiology. So when we're talking about epidemiology of the infectious diseases, so how in infectious diseases, whether the disease is there or not, how to level, what level it is there, which age group. When we're talking about COVID-19 also, right? So we are saying that who is the victim, whether this age group or that age group, females or males, Japanese or Chinese. Okay, so whether it is occurring more in urban areas, well, the reason could be when we say it is occurring in the urban areas more. So why is it occurring? Because of the close living and less social distancing. And this is why we're saying that it is less existent in rural areas when where they have more of countryside and more of open air, right? And then till now, if we're talking about the cycles or the time, there is no defined time for COVID-19. Yeah. Okay, so why do we want to study the epidemiology of diseases? Because then we tend to know the patterns of the infectious diseases, and then new infections are, and then there's possibility that some chronic diseases have an infective origin. For example, if we talk about rheumatoid arthritis, right? So it is initially it is streptococcus streptococcal infection, which further on takes its root to cause the rheumatoid arthritis, which is affecting more chronically, right? So there could be different infective origins which can cause otherwise disability. So look at the irony, when we are talking about advancement in this world and all that. Here we need to ponder on it. I mean, it's a little diversion from our topic, but then we need to ponder on it, that we have been studying different things. We have been talking about the patterns and this and that, and everybody has talks about advancement in disease, in fact, investment in advancement in vaccines and all that. But that at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really given us an awakening call, telling us, whatever you may do, if I want to do something, I can do it. So you see, we have been talking about that we will discover new infections. So ideally, if we would have been so vigilant, or or our scientific skills have been so we could have managed, so the disease should not have occurred. But then it's not like this. So there is some kind of a lacking somewhat somewhere, so we need to understand that. Okay, so what is infectious disease epidemiology? This is something we have been talking since last year more. We've been teaching it in community medicine since year one, the patterns and all. But then since COVID-19 has set in, just look at this. There's this one case, right? But all these people who are in contact with him are on risk, okay? And one person can transmit it to the others. So what has he done? एक बंदा था जो red circle है, who has actually transferred it to these two, and then who have further given it to these two. So it is spreading all over. Okay. whenever we're talking about I hope you guys are with me. Can anybody please? Okay, let me just see. From the okay, Rida Fatma. Rida, can you please tell me if you're with me, and please text me in the chat box. Can you please tell me, and have you got any idea what is an epidemiological triad? What could it be? Could you please text any one of you? I wanted Rida to answer, but anyone can also text me in the group. Just don't be here for the sake of attendance, my dear students. Please kindly respond. What could be the epidemiological? Okay, Rida, thank you so much for answering. Yes, I'm here, but no idea about it. Host, agent, environment. Okay, okay. So, host, agent, environment. Anyone, what do you think? What does that mean? What does that mean by host, agent, and environment, and how is it related with epidemiology? Key components of infection studying. Yes, Nihal, thank you so much. There's another one, Inshal, environment that after the host has infected. Then Muhi says, host is affected, agent is the offender, and environment is the surrounding. And so it basically means the three major factors associated with spread of the disease. Exactly, Noam. Very nice. Thank you so much for your help. So that tells me, I'm glad to have you all. That tells me that you guys are alert. I'm glad. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so basically, when we're talking about any kind of an infection, there is an imbalance amongst these three. Okay, so it would be either the host is not up to the mark, in the sense a person, a female, male, the immunity levels are not good, maybe there's some genetic discrepancy or anything of the type. So or for that matter, the agent would be any thing affecting that is biological or physical or chemical, any thing that is disbalanced, right? And then it's the infective agent that is causing the infection, its dose, its strain, and then the time of exposure. Sometimes, if I am sitting there, for example, and somebody else with a simple flu, or if we talk about corona virus these days, so is the person sort of sneezes, okay, and then there is the agent in the air. Now the point is that I may not acquire the disease, but then there may be people who would acquire it in the same environment. Okay, so why would they acquire it? Maybe they do not have the right kind of immunity. So this is what we are all talking about during COVID. Please kindly focus on your immunity. You need to focus that we do not lose our immunity, and we need to be eating our vitamins well. We should be eating our minerals well, and the balanced diet should be there so that we maintain our immunity. So if we come in interaction with the agent, that is the coronavirus, we still can combat it so well that we do not acquire the disease. Okay? So it is very important. So this is one of the models. This is one of the concepts of epidemiology. There can be other concepts such as the web of causation models. All right. So in this, when we talk about generally, when we started talking about this web of causation, we talked about non-communicable diseases, right? For example, like blood pressures or atherosclerosis or coagulation, right? So there are multifactorial things that can be affecting. But then at the end of the day, when we are talking about other epidemiological triads also, it affects the same way. It is multifactorial, right? The environment is going to work, the agent is going to work, the lack of immunity is going to work, and the imbalance between all these would cause the disease. Okay, so there is the epidemiological triad, and then we have the web of causation, right? Okay. Um, so the definition of a communicable disease, these are the terminologies that we generally talk about in infectious. And in this area, I will go a little fast because I think and the definitions are there. But then if there's anything that you are not understanding, please type in the chat box and then I will respond to it, right? Because there's no rocket science in these definitions, so I'm not going to take a lot of time explaining them. I'll just read through them, and if or maybe not read through them, but just explain rapidly. So communicable diseases are those illnesses which are due to a specific infectious agent and or its toxic products capable of being directly or indirectly transmitted from man to man, from animal to man, from animal to animal, or from the environment, that is through air, water, or food. Okay, so then we have all these terminologies. We'll be going through them one by one. So the infection, it is an entry and development of or multiplication of an infectious agent in the body or of man or animals, and there's several levels of infections, that is gradients of infection. There could be we have this colonization. Colonization is something that there is existence of staph aureus in the skin and the normal nasopharynx. So they are existing there, but they're not sort of creating any havoc otherwise. Or it may be that if they're not present, then there will be a havoc, right? And then we have the subclinical or apparent infection. Like any other infection, polio, typhoid, or measles, or anything like that. And then we have the latent infection, where the infection is existent in the body, but it is not showing any symptoms, or it is not very vigilant at that point in time. And then we have the manifest of clinical infection, which is sort of showing the symptoms. Okay, then we have contamination. It is the presence of an infectious agent on a body surface or on clothes, beddings, toys, surgical instruments, or dressing or other. So it's a a very obvious example that we have the sea, which was clean, but then we have the industrial waste in it, so it is being contaminated. It is being contaminated chemically, it is being contaminated infectiously, toxically, physically. ये जो bottles हैं ये physically affect कर रही हैं. So what is it occurring at the end of the day? There are infectious agents in the water body, which is called contamination. Okay, then we have the infestation. It is the lodgement, development and reproduction of arthropods on the surface of the body. For example, when unfortunately there are lice in our hair, or like, we have scabies, that we have different the scabi organisms infested, or embedded in our finger webs, right? And then we have it could be in animals to animals, animals to plants, plants to humans to plants, and animals, whatever. So there is there could be, it is like when we're talking about, it is on the surface, right? So it not necessarily is just on the skin, it could be deep in the gut of the stomach, right? So that also, like for example, ascaris sort of embeds itself in the gut, in the alimentary canal. So that is also infestation. Is basically infestation is the parasitic invasion, right? And then we have who as a host is a person or an animal that affords subsistence or lodgement to an infectious agent under natural conditions. There could be different types of hosts. One, there's an obligate host, in which, for example, when we're talking about malaria, right? So the vector, that is the mosquito, carries the plasmodium, and the only host existent is the human being. Until unless it gets transferred to the human being, it will not, the disease will not progress, right? So this is known as the obligate host. But when there is a definitive host in which the host attains maturity or passes sexual stages, there could be different infestations जो होती हैं, ascaris है, या different, और ये जो worms होते हैं ना, long worms, और ये सब जो है वो इस host के बगैर exist ही नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है? Then we have the intermediate host, which passes the organism, ठीक है? It is not affecting, or if it is not working, doing anything, but it is existing in the asexual stage, and it sort of is used as a I would say intermediary thing. Just lets you pass through in an asexual stage, और उसके बाद फिर निकलने के बाद it sort of reproduces. Okay, then we have the transport host that does not undergo development. It does not help in the development of the organism. A contagious disease is a disease, one that is transmitted through contact, that is scabies, trachoma, STD, and then now we have it as the infectious agent, flus, and COVID-19. Okay, what's an epidemic? Can anyone type it for me, please? Yeah. What do you think is an epidemic? After all the COVID-19 that we have in our town and around and all over the world, so what could be epidemic? Outbreak of a disease. Okay, sudden outbreak. But what do you mean by outbreak? Is it, what kind of numbers are we talking about? Are we talking about 1 to 2 numbers? We're talking about, what do you mean by outbreak? Greater than normal. Okay. Widespread infection in a particular area. Abnormally large increase in the case number of cases that normally is present in that particular country. Great. Widespread occurrence of a disease more than expected frequency. Widespread occurrence of an infection. Okay, so anything that is occurring more than the normal, it refers to the constant presence of a disease or infectious agent. Okay, first we're talking about endemic disease. Now, endemic. I know you guys have told me about the epidemic, but let's talk about the endemic disease. Endemic is the constant presence of a disease or infectious agent within a given geographic area or population. So it is usual or expected frequency within a population. And this, for example, like, you know, in a community, when the season comes, we would say that this is the normal routine pattern of the disease of flu in October. So now we know that this kind of an a flu is existent in the community. It is there in the community, and like, you know, we so when something that is existent on a low level, we would call that an endemic. Whereas the same thing, if it upsurges or goes higher, right, then we will call it the epidemic. In this, the unusual occurrence in a community of disease, specific health-related behavior, or other health-related events clearly in excess expected occurrence is called epidemic. Can both infectious and non-infectious. Can we say polio is an endemic disease in? Yes, we can say that. It is an endemic, it is an existent disease, but it is not the absurd. But you know why we are after it? Why we want polio finished? Because it is, I mean, it is, you'd be surprised to know that there are about around 4 to 5 strains of polio, but there's only one that is causing the disability, and this disability is like, you know, sort of very like when it occurs, it sort of affects not just that person who is disabled, but the surrounding, the whole family system. That is why we are after it. Yes, it is, you're right that the polio is an endemic disease. Okay, so at the end of the day, like, you know, epidemic, endemic, and this is how we compare that this is something which is existent, and then all of a sudden, for example, I'm sorry, flu is endemic, and then all of a sudden when the season of September, October comes, it becomes an epidemic, and then it again reduces. Okay. Now, hyperendemic or holoendemic. The hyperendemic expresses that the disease is constantly present at high incidence or prevalence rate and affects all age groups equally. And the term holoendemic expresses a high level of infection beginning early in life and affecting most of the child population, leading to a state of equilibrium such that the adult population shows evidence of the disease much less than commonly than do the children.
I'm sorry, students. I don't know why my mic went mute. Okay. Yes, I think Sidratul Muntaha asked, Sidra, we generally use this term epidemic and endemic on infectious diseases. But then, yes, we can say, for example, that. Initially hypertension was endemic, which was an underlying disease, but then due to our dietary habits, it has sort of taken the upsurge, and lots of people have it. So yes, we can say this, but ideally this concept is the concept is that we are talking about infectious diseases. But yes, we can say it. Okay. Okay. So the word sporadic means scattered about. The cases irregularly, haphazardly, and generally infrequently occurring. The cases that are few and separated widely in time or place. Example, polio, we can say. But now, for example, it is sporadic in if it would occur in a country like where it is existent, but it is spread around. I mean, if we're talking about Nigeria, there are very few countries which are left with polio, right? So there's Nigeria, there's Afghanistan, there's Pakistan. So we have the spread as sporadic. It is endemic. The terminology can be used for endemic, the disease, sorry. Polio, it is underlying disease. It is sporadic because it is occurring in wide areas, and then it may be a starting point of an endemic, epidemic. Okay. I hope that has clarified. Yes, I'm sorry. Quite a lot of you have messaged that you couldn't hear me. I don't know why it went mute. Okay. So, okay. So now, pandemic and exotic. Pandemic, we are all very aware of that it involves more than one continent, and exotic are those diseases which are imported into a country in which they are not or do not otherwise occur. For example, rabies in UK, or yellow fever in India, or I would say Africa, Okay, so then we have zoonosis, epizootic, and enzootic. Zoonosis is an infection that is transmissible under the natural conditions from vertebrate animals to man. Example, rabies, plague, bovine tuberculosis, or so. Epizootic is an outbreak of disease in animal population, right? And enzootic is an endemic occurring in. So the epizootic is the epidemic that is occurring in a large number, and enzootic is endemic in animals. So both of them are in animals. Zoonosis is animals, now vertebrate animals, yani ke, to animals to man, and epizootic and enzootic are both regarding the animals. One is the epidemic and one is the endemic of the animals. Okay. Now, nosocomial diseases. Nosocomial diseases are those diseases which we acquire when we are in the hospital surrounding. For example, somebody who goes to get his cabbage done, okay, and there, after getting his cabbage done, he acquires Pseudomonas infection. So that is a nosocomial disease. Nosocomial disease means any disease which one acquires from the hospital. Okay. Zoonosis can be epidemic or can be endemic, because when we are talking about when we're talking about epidemic and endemic, so anything that is occurring from animal to humans is zoonotic, and then that could be epidemic in the sense that if it is upsurge. For example, way back when the HIV/AIDS got started being transferred from the baboon to humans, it was an endemic, right? But then when there was the upsurge, or the disease got spread a lot, then it was the epidemic. Yeah, you're right, Harendra. It was Nigeria has declared polio free recently, but then it is being juggled between these three countries. Sometimes they declare themselves clear, and then sometimes it's there, and all that. So, anyways, Sharik, how much time do I have? In the sense that I started a little late, so do I have to finish at 10 only, or थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ सकता है?
हेलो जी मैडम,
मैं
मैं
कह रही
बोल रहा
हूँ
हूँ।
नेक्स्ट क्लास 10:30 है ना, तो हम
जी जी
5 मिनट एक्स्ट्रा ले सकते हैं ना?
मैडम, नेक्स्ट नहीं ले लें, आप अपने टाइमिंग ले लें, 10 बजे तक, 10:30 तक ही ले लें, कोई मसला नहीं।
नहीं, मैं पूरे 10:30 भी नहीं लूंगी, इसलिए कि बच्चे का दिमाग पक जाएगा और उनको भी ब्रेक चाहिए
ठीक है
होती
मैडम।
है। हाँ, मैं 10-5 मिनट बस एक्स्ट्रा
जी
लूंगी।
जी 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 जी
Students, I hope you understand, because there was some internet issues, so we couldn't join in exactly at 9, right? So please bear with me, because this is a long lecture. I will try my best कि मैं तेजी करा देती हूँ, ठीक है? Okay, so we have opportunistic infection. This is an infection by organisms that takes the opportunity provided by a defect in host defense. For example, as we have been talking about it, when there's lack of immunity, so the infection sort of sets in. It's like this, as I told you, that in a room, there may be 5 to 7 person sitting there, right? But then one of them is a carrier to coronavirus. So, and he sneezes in the room. Now, all 7 of them can acquire the disease, and all maybe 1 to 2 people will acquire the disease because they were not their immunity was not good. Otherwise, when we talk about prone people, so aged is a thing, and then the immunity is one thing. So opportunistic infection, any infection that sets in because of the lack of immunity or lack of the gender or any factor, right? So, and opportunistic infections are very common in AIDS. Organisms include herpes simplex and cytomegalovirus. ठीक है? अच्छा जनाब, iatrogenic would mean that some procedure or some drug or some anything was introduced into a person or in a patient's life, and rather than affecting positively or making it better, it sort of affects the health of the best example is blood transfusion. For example, blood transfusion was given to a patient to acquire of course to address the lack of human hemoglobin, right? But then what happens is rather it was not screened well, so a person acquires hepatitis B or AIDS or something like that, so it is basically not necessarily always the physician's fault, but sometimes it could be the negligence or the error of the physician, right? Okay, now if we talk about eradication means termination of all transmission of infection by extermination of the infectious agent through surveillance and containment. Eradication is an absolute process and an all or none phenomena restricted to termination of infection from the whole world. So there's like, unfortunately, we're working on health so much. WHO is going crazy working on the concepts of like, uh, getting rid of the diseases. But unfortunately, there's been only one disease, that is smallpox, which we could claim, or WHO can claim, that it has been eradicated. Other than that, there's no disease. We're trying our best to get rid of polio. We're trying our best to get control of malaria and typhoid and all those. But still, we have not eradicated it. Eradicated is getting rid of it from this piece of earth altogether. Okay. Okay, now we have elimination. Elimination is the term which is used sometimes to describe eradication of disease from a large geographic region. Okay, we may have, like, we're in the process of getting rid of measles, leprosy, and diphtheria. So, like, the initial stages that we're trying to control, and then we are trying to eliminate, and then if we are like, have attained elimination, then we work for its eradication, right? So at the moment, we are trying to get polio eradicated, right? But we are trying to eliminate measles and leprosy. So I hope you understand the difference. If there's any query, this is a little tricky, so please do talk about it. What about peptic ulcer? Is it an opportunistic infection? Well, we could say that there is more of H. pylori, or the peptic ulcer is taking place. Eradication is from the planet, and elimination is from the geographical region. Yes, you're right. Polio is eliminated right now, but not eradicated. Yes, yes, this is the concept, right? And there was another question. So, like, corona is initially zoonotic only, considering the bat theory. Yeah, if we want to accept the fact that it was, because then again, it is just a theory. We do not know that it is like, the bat that sort of brought in this disease. But yes, if that gets proven, so yes, it is a zoonotic disease. Yeah, you're right. Who was that? Mishal. Okay. Okay, guys, so elimination is done. Actually, these terminologies are very important in aspect to your BCQs and MCQs. So a lot of MCQs are made from these epidemiological terminologies. So please be very careful. Okay, now the dynamics of disease transmission, the chain of infection. That is, we have the source or reservoir, and then we have the modes of transmission, and then we have the susceptible host. ठीक है, तो इसको हम further देख लेते हैं कि source or reservoir. The source of infection is defined as the person or animal, object, I'm sorry, or substance from which an infectious agent passes or is disseminated to the host. So the reservoir is any person, animal, arthropod, plant, soil, or substance, or a combination of these in which an infectious agent normally lives and multiplies, on which it depends primarily for survival, and where it reproduces itself in such a manner that it can be transmitted to a susceptible host. It is the natural habitat of the infectious agent. So the reservoir is a place where the infection nurtures. So what we need to work on, being an individual, you and me, we need to work on that we should not be a reservoir for these infectious agents. Okay, so the baseline is that we are a big host to them. These animals are big hosts to them. Then we have different plants which have ticks and mites and aphids and different things. Then we have soil which has different organisms living in them. Okay? But then when we're talking about ourselves, we should not become the reservoir to these diseases. Okay? So now we have different types of reservoirs. There are human reservoirs, there are animal reservoirs, and then we have the non-living reservoirs. I don't think there's any rocket science in there, but I'll just sort of skim through it. And if there's anything that you guys need to have a query, so you can put it in the chat box, right? Okay. So then we have the, I'm sorry for this grandpa's clock. Okay, done with. So we have the human reservoir for these diseases. They exist, the AIDS and syphilis and gonorrhea and all these which exist in the human reservoir. And then we have the animal reservoir, which has anthrax and brucellosis and listeriosis and whatever, right? And then we have the non-living reservoirs, like, you know, it lives in soil, the plasmosis or blastomycosis and tetanus, and as I mentioned, botulism. These all are exist in the soil. Then we have the water reservoirs, different like, you know, organisms are in water. We have the typhoid, and then sometimes hepatitis, and all these also exist in the water reservoirs. Okay. And then we have the human reservoir. In this, we have two types of things. One is cases that shows the symptoms, and then one is the carriers, right? In this, we have three types of carriers. One is incubatory carrier, one is convalescence carrier, and one is healthy carrier. Okay? We will talk about it further later also. Cases में जो है वो according to the spectrum of disease है, clinical cases होते हैं, subclinical cases होते हैं, and latent infection cases होते हैं. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब एक्सपोजर टू इन्फेक्शियस एजेंट्स जब हो जाते हैं हमारे पास, तो या तो मतलब देखो पॉसिबिलिटीज क्या क्या हैं कि अगर इन्फेक्शंस एजेंट ने आपको हिट किया तो क्या क्या होगा. या तो नो इन्फेक्शन होगी, या हमें क्लिनिकल सिम्टम्स बाजाब्ता फ्लू के, नज़ले के, छींकों के साथ मिलेंगे. सब क्लिनिकल होंगे, यानी कि कुछ सिम्टम्स आएंगे नजर और कुछ नहीं आएंगे. और कैरियर होगा तो वो लेके तो अपने साथ घूम रहा होगा, मगर उसको वो इफेक्ट नहीं करेगा, मे बी बिकॉज उसकी अपनी इम्यूनिटी बहुत अच्छी है, मगर वो किसी और से मिलेगा तो वो जरूर इसको ट्रांसफर कर देगा. जैसे कि अब हम यहाँ पर बात कर रहे हैं आजकल हमारी इस कोविड की. ठीक है? Why we are, and every health care person is really after this, that Allah ka wasta, social distancing is the key to it. You may be a carrier, you may not know about it, but once you meet that person, and God forbid if your immunity is not working up to the mark at that point in time, then what is going to happen? You are going to acquire the disease. Okay, so this is the basic concept of these infectious agents, that it may be a carrier, so we need to avoid that contact which would sort of transfer it. अच्छा, अब क्या है कि जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम बात करें ना कि ये कोरोना वायरस, इफ इट्स कम्स, फॉर एग्जांपल मैंने किसी ऐसे बंदे से हाथ में ला लिया जिसको कोरोना वायरस लगा हुआ है और मेरे हाथ को आ गया, बट अगर मैंने उसको फौरन से वॉश ऑफ कर दिया तो वो वॉश ऑफ हो जाएगा. ठीक है? अदरवाइज हमारे ह्यूमन बॉडी पे वो अगर है भी तो वो 24 आवर्स में खत्म हो जाता है, ठीक है. And then we have the porous surfaces. Porous surfaces से मुराद ये कि जो natural surfaces है ना, लकड़ी, wood is one of the best porous surfaces, ठीक है. उस surface पे अगर कोरोना वायरस लगा है या infectious, I mean every infectious agent would have a different a time period. Okay, so in corona it is said that if it's on a porous surface, that is the wood and all, so it would be existent for about 48 hours. And then if it is existent, if it comes in contact with the metal or plastic, then it would be existent there for 72 hours. Okay, so it's a pattern of 24, 48 and 72 hours. And if we have sort of like, you know, taken care of these three different time frames, then we can get rid of this disease. But we are not being careful. That is the issue. Okay, so when we're talking about cases is defined as a person in population or study group identified as having the particular disease, health disorder, or condition under investigation. Carriers, as we've talked about, there could be different types of the presence of disease agent in the body, the absence of recognizable symptoms and signs that may be subclinical, and then the shedding of the disease, that is the person is sort of a contagious element to it. Okay. Animal reservoirs we've talked about, there's nothing much to it. And then we have the modes of transmission. Modes of transmission may be different तरीके के, direct transmission and indirect transmission. Direct में direct contact आ गया, drop infection, contact. अच्छा, and mind you, अब आप अगर when you must be going through all this, you must realize that आप देखें कि साइंस ने ये सारी बातें पहले से कर ली हैं, बट ये कि जब इस डिजीज ने आना था तो आया and it has invaded, it has Hello, can you guys hear me? Hello. Okay, great. You know what, students? I'm actually feeling that, you know, there is quite a lot of information in this lecture, and it is very overwhelming. If I would speak to the coordinator of your year, and I would like कि मुझे अगर if I can get hold of half an hour more, so some other time, maybe not today, because then it is going to be, of course I will email the slides, but then there's so many things that I would want to talk about. So if I can arrange for another class, I would try that. But in case I cannot, I will still skim through this a little faster, so that we have gotten the concept. Yes. My email address is, I'm sending it to you. Please, any one of you can please email me, and I will share the uhs.edu.pk. So if you could just email me, and I'll share this lecture with you. Okay, so the mode of transmission is this. Then we have the susceptible host. An infectious agent seeks a susceptible host. We've talked about it, right? Okay, this is a concept that I really wanted you guys to have. When the infection sets in, okay, so it's the beginning of the incubation period, and the incubation period ends the minute the symptoms appear and the disease is occurring, right? But the latent period is a little before the symptoms start. Okay, so this is the period that we are actually concerned about. The symptoms have not arrived, and the period of communicability has started. So you are vulnerable to transmit the disease, but nobody knows. So this is the period that we are really concerned about. So the period of quarantine is the incubation period, and then we have the period of safety till the latent period is there. But once the period of communicability starts, it would be a little before the symptoms start. Okay, so this is going to really affect, this time period is going to affect the communities that are having trouble. And then once, of course, the disease has set in, or ideally the period of isolation should start when the latent period ends. But then when do we start the isolation? When the incubation ends. And so this period is not in between catered for, and which is the concern that we should all be talking about. Okay, these are all the details that I've talked about already. Okay, index case is a person that comes to the attention of the public health authority. He may not be the primary case. A primary case is someone who has been exposed, who was the first one to be exposed. Okay, so just try to understand the difference. Primary case is one who was exposed, but index case is the one who came in, वो कहते हैं ना कि अथॉरिटीज की नजर में जो आया वो इंडेक्स केस है. ठीक है. Okay, what is the difference between quarantine and isolation? It is very, very important. The difference is quarantine वो है जबकि आपको डिजीज हुई नहीं है, सिम्टम्स हुए नहीं है. Let me go back to the this diagram. देखो, यहां पर से इन्फेक्शन आई और यहां पर सिम्टम्स आए. ये पीरियड, if you are vulnerable, or if you think that it may have affected you. For example, if I go to someone's house and I find out कि oh यहाँ पर measles थे, अब measles से मेरा exposure तो हो गया है, but I do not know whether I have acquired it or not. So for that period, I will quarantine myself. ठीक है? But once I have acquired the symptoms, or I know for sure कि मेरे टेस्ट पॉजिटिव आ गए हैं, तो फिर उसके बाद जो आपने टाइम गुजारना है वो आइसोलेशन है। ठीक है, क्वारंटीन वो टाइम होता है जब ट्रैवलिंग करके कोई किसी अफ्रीका से आया, वहां पर येलो फीवर था, आपकी वैक्सीनेशन नहीं हुई थी, तो आपको एयरपोर्ट पे रोक लिया जाएगा और एयरपोर्ट पर लोग जो हैं वो आपने उतना टाइम गुजारना है। कौन सा वाला टाइम? जो इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड था ऑफ येलो फीवर, दैट इज 9 days, सो यू विल हैव टू स्टे देयर फॉर 9 days। इसी तरीके से लोग जो ट्रैवल करके आ रहे हैं वो 15 दिन के लिए, 10 से 15 दिन के लिए अपने आप को क्वारंटीन में रख रहे हैं, जस्ट टू टेक कि कोई खुदा ना खास्ता उनके अंदर सिम्टम्स तो नहीं आ गए। ठीक है, सो दिस इज डिफरेंट, द डिफरेंस बिटवीन क्वारंटीन एंड आइसोलेशन, एंड इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट आपके एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी, आपके नॉलेज पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी। ठीक है, अच्छा जनाब, यहां पर देखिए ये जो चेन है, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। आपने, हाँ अगेन कोविड के हवाले से अब आप देख लें कि अगर आप, यू बीइंग अ पर्सन, यू मीट 2 people, now you have met 2 people, now this lady will again meet 2 people, ठीक है, and now ये इन्फेक्टेड थे, इन्होंने इनको इन्फेक्ट किया, इन्होंने इन दोनों को इन्फेक्ट किया, इन दोनों ने इनको, सो आप जस्ट look at this, just this one person has acquired this, has sort of instigated this much havoc. rather अगर ये बंदा सिर्फ इनसे मिला तो सिर्फ इस लॉट को केटर किया, इस लॉट को बीमार किया, मगर ये पूरा लॉट बच गया। ठीक है, so it's very very important. So I'm done with this. If there's any query you guys have, so please you can ask. ठीक है, इंक्यूबेशन और लेटेंट पीरियड का अच्छा, इट्स वेरी ट्रिकी। लेटेंट पीरियड जो है ना वो आप ऐसे ही नहीं मालूम कर सकते, बट ये कि इन्फेक्शन वाली जगह पर आप गए थे और उससे थोड़ा सा पहले, सो एवरी डिजीज हैज इट्स लेटेंट पीरियड डिफाइंड एट दिस पॉइंट एंड टाइम। तो उसमें आपने करना ये है कि लाइक यू नो अज्यूम करना है, आई मीन इन द सेंस आई बता सिम्टम्स आएंगे तो आपको पता चलेगा ना, तो उससे पहले अगर आपने फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपने उसके सॉर्ट ऑफ, मैं इसको डायग्राम वाइज ही आपको समझाती हूँ, रुक जाए। ये देखिए इन्फेक्शन हो गई है, ठीक है, एंड देन the incubation period also starts, the latent period also starts. This is the point where you will get the symptoms, but like it is a pre-calculated thing for each and every infectious disease that the latent period will end a little before the symptoms have occurred. ठीक है, and the period of communicability will start. So the period of communicability is the time where you can transfer, you are contagious, you can infect other people. So why I'm saying this period from here, when the latent period ends, latent period is the I would say the period where the infectious agent has been introduced into your body, but he's still struggling to gain his place. He is sort of trying to multiply. He is trying to gain his like you know अपने पाँव आपकी बॉडी में गड़ने की कोशिश कर रहा है. He's trying to take over the place. That is the latent period. And once it has reproduced enough, it will produce these symptoms. ठीक है, so this is the period we are really concerned about, because उसमें symptoms भी नहीं आए हैं, you don't know whether you have the disease or not, और जब disease आ गए तो उसके दरमियान वाला जो ये time है is the time where you will transfer or you can transfer. ठीक है, I hope I have made it myself clear. चलें जी, I think it's enough of your time. I think you just have 15 more minutes before you start the next class. So take care. And if there's any other queries, please, 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 you can email me. I'm sorry, एक और student ने किसी ने host के हवाले से भी सवाल किया है. But अगर मैं यहाँ पे अब दोबारा explain करूँगी बेटा, it will take a lot of time, Aisha. You can email me and then we can communicate. ठीक है? चलो, take care. Allah Hafiz. Okay, Sharik.
Okay, madam. Allah Hafiz. Always bola.
Thank you. Allah
Take
Hafiz.
care.
Okay, Allah Hafiz. Take care.